are somewhat constrained for time as we were yesterday. Just to announce at the outset, colleagues, that we will have to adjourn at 1 p.m. sharp so that our technicians can get prepared for their next Zoom video conference. But having said that, I will now call this meeting to order. Welcome to meeting number 8 of the Standing Committee on Government Operations and Estimates. Pursuant to order of reference of Saturday, April 11th, 2020, this committee is meeting on a study of the government's response to the COVID-19 pandemic. Now, before we start, I'd like to announce the schedule for next week's meetings. Our first meeting will be on Monday, May 4th at 2 p.m. It'll last for 2 hours. The second meeting next week will be on Friday, meeting from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. All of those times are Eastern Standard Time. Now, I'd like to make a few comments for the benefits of our witnesses and our committee members, although I'm sure most of you committee members are quite familiar with the procedures by now. Before speaking, wait till I recognize your name. When you are ready to speak, you can either click on your microphone icon or activate your mic by holding down the space bar. And if you lift the space bar up, you will be automatically muted. When speaking, please speak slowly and clearly, enunciate clearly. It will help our interpreters greatly if you do so. I would also like to explain some of the guidelines regarding the interpretation channels, and I've gone over this several times in the past, but for the benefit of new members, if you are going to be speaking primarily in English, go to the interpretation slide or icon at the bottom of your screen and click on English. If you are primarily speaking en français, click on French. If you are to be alternating between English and French, before you alternate, please pause for a beat to allow the interpreters to change their channels and then proceed in the language of your choice. And before we get started, I'd like everybody to click on the icon, that grid at the top right of your screen, and click on Gallery View if you wish. That will show you everyone who is participating in today's meeting, and you can see their videos as well. Right now, I would ask Mr. Whalen, even though we're slightly behind schedule, I would ask Mr. Whalen to please make your opening remarks. And I would ask Mr. Whalen if you can try and keep your comments as brief and concise as possible to allow as much time as possible for questions from our committee members. Mr. Whalen, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And first of all, I just want to thank all the committee members for the opportunity to be here today to speak on behalf of Luminultra's role in providing essential COVID-19 testing supplies. I will aim to keep this brief so that we make sure we have ample time for questions, but I do want to provide a little bit of backstory about Luminultra. We are a molecular biology diagnostic testing company, and we primarily focus on testing for microorganisms in water. Just like people, water systems can get sick. They can get infected with different types of microbes, and we provide tools to essential businesses around the world for being able to apply treatments and management techniques that otherwise would end up with a global economic cost in the hundreds of billions of dollars per year. We're proudly headquartered in New Brunswick, here in Fredericton, and we have operations in 6 countries around the world, including the United States, the United Kingdom, France, the Netherlands, and Australia. We are 100% Canadian owned between myself and XPB Water Partners based out of Toronto. And we have been in business for about 20 years, but we span all the way back to 1995 when we got our early beginnings. And I was lucky enough to be one of the 3 founders of the company as a laboratory technician while I was still in high school. Today, we've grown to nearly 100 staff, the vast majority of which are actually here in Canada. And up until, I would say, recently, we were very unknown to Canadians because our business has been very internationally focused in our history. We sell primarily to private industry, more of a B2B kind of business in over 80 countries around the world, and our customer base is largely made up of Fortune 500 companies. And these types of businesses are in the business of providing essential services, and we have been committed to making sure that we're able to continue to meet their needs while maintaining the safety and security of our staff. And that's an important part of our staff. We have a very innovative, very a very adept team that has grown accustomed to innovating over the years. And that is actually the culture of innovation that had led us to be able to step into the fight against COVID-19, which started on March 20th when the Prime Minister put out the call to action to industry. We responded very quickly through the front doors that were provided. And knowing that we had certain expertise that could be brought to bear on the testing side, through those doors, we became in contact with the Public Health Agency of Canada, had some very detailed, in-depth discussions with the folks out in Winnipeg, and realized that we could provide much needed chemical reagents to allow testing to proceed across Canada. That has resulted in us making the commitment to the Government of Canada to provide reagents for 25 million COVID-19 tests over the next year. And as of today, we have already shipped 1 million of those tests from our facility in Fredericton to all of the provincial health laboratories across Canada. Next steps, though, we always have an eye to the future. We are engaged with various government agencies, including ICED, NRC, and ACOA, on scaling up this production even further and expanding beyond simply providing those chemical reagents to being able to provide a more comprehensive solution for COVID-19 testing. And we're also looking at the opportunities for deploying testing beyond the clinical setting into environmental settings as well, where we would be able to provide some assurances that the environments that we all live, work, and play in are kept safe and secure as we begin to relax physical distancing in the future. So I just want to say, overall, how immensely proud I am of our team and also of the team at the Public Health Agency of Canada, who have been incredibly hardworking, long hours, lots of conversations, a great team to work with. And we have really gone through this together to be able to very rapidly shore up these bottlenecks through that collaboration. And again, I appreciate the opportunity to be here today and look forward to any questions. Thank you very much.
I believe you are muted, Mr. Chair.
Hopefully, I'll get the hang of this before we end these meetings. Mr. Lem, the floor is yours.
Thank you. I appreciate the invitation to attend today's meeting and talk about my company, Spartan Bioscience. It's an honor to address you, the members of Parliament, on the Government Operations Committee. I am Spartan Bioscience's Chief Executive Officer. I'm responsible for setting the company's strategy and leading its implementation. I hold a medical degree from the University of Ottawa, and my specialty was infectious disease and microbiology. I started Spartan Bioscience 15 years ago with the mission of bringing the power of DNA testing to everyone. I had a close family member who was diagnosed with leukemia. It took weeks to get DNA results back from the lab before he could start a life-saving drug. That gave me the idea of bringing these DNA analyzers out of the lab to everyone, in the same way that blood glucose meters, we all take it for granted that we can test ourselves in our homes. And our vision is, how do we do the same with DNA testing? Driven by our mission, Spartan has grown into a leading biotechnology company. We've developed the world's smallest DNA analyzer. Our technology has received FDA approval, Health Canada approval, and been validated by expert organizations such as the Centers for Disease Control and Mayo Clinic. Our technology has also been published in prestigious medical journals, including the Lancet and the JAMA, one of the top medical journals. We believe that our fast, accurate, affordable, and portable tests will make DNA testing accessible for everyone in fields as diverse as infectious disease, precision medicine, food and water safety testing, and veterinary diagnostics. Before the COVID-19 pandemic, we had applied our technology to a variety of fields. One of our first tests was a precision medicine test that is used by cardiologists for a drug called Plavix. It was the #2 best-selling drug of all time after Lipitor. And basically, this drug, it's not activated properly by 30% of patients because they carry a mutation that prevents their liver from activating the prodrug. And that puts them at much higher risk of cardiac complications. So with our rapid test, cardiologists can help their patients avoid these side effects. Another one of our tests is for a genetic pre-screening for Alzheimer's research that's able to identify the 20% of people who carry genetic risk mutations that increase the risk of developing Alzheimer's. Finally, we've also applied our technology to environmental testing, specifically testing water systems in buildings for Legionella bacteria. Legionella is this bacteria that can contaminate water systems, including the office buildings here in the Ottawa area. And people who breathe in water contaminated by this bacteria are at risk of Legionnaire's disease, a severe pneumonia that kills 10% of infected people. And our test is now one of the world leading tests that's used by the CDC, New York State Department of Health, and Fortune 500 companies. All of these tests I mentioned, they run on the same coffee cup sized device. We call it the Spartan Cube. And the analogy I like using is it's like a Keurig coffee machine. So once you have the device, they can run different pods. Over the past 15 years, with all this experience in R&D, that's what allowed us to answer the call for increased COVID-19 testing. With the support of the Government of Canada through the Industrial Research Assistance Program, we were quickly able to adapt the CDC's validated COVID-19 test and put it onto our validated platform. To give you a sense of how fast the timeline has been, on March 20th, the Canadian government recognized our ability to help with the pandemic and signed a letter of intent with us. The following day, on March 21st, we reached an agreement with the Government of Ontario for a contract for 900,000 tests. Then on April 11th, we received Health Canada approval for our COVID-19 test, and we immediately started shipping to our federal and provincial partners. Without the government support we received to date, both at the federal level and also through Premier Doug Ford's government eventually, we would not have been able to create our rapid tests, nor would we be in a position of rapid production to help meet Canada's testing needs. We're a proud Canadian company. We're excited that our technology will be an important part of fighting the COVID-19 pandemic in Canada. And this COVID-19 test we've developed, it's going to be ideal for use in decentralized settings, such as remote communities, indigenous communities, potentially airports, border crossings, doctors' offices, pharmacies, and clinics. Now that we have our tests ready for use, we're working around the clock to ramp up production and make our tests more widely available to Canadians. Our suppliers have been putting forward an extraordinary effort, and we're fortunate that our suppliers are based here in the Ottawa area, so we're not subject to export bans or the shortage of things such as swabs. And to date, we've already shipped thousands of test kits out, and by July, we have plans in place to ship out hundreds of thousands of tests per week. The last few weeks have been like nothing our company has ever experienced. The ramp has been incredible. I'd like to give a lot of credit to Prime Minister Trudeau, Minister Navdeep Bains, and Premier Ford and Premier Legault and their officials for helping us ramp so fast. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I believe you're still
Mr.
muted.
McCauley, my apologies once again. Mr. McCauley, you're up for 6 minutes, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Gentlemen, thanks very much. Fascinating work you're doing. If I could start with Mr. Whalen, you've answered a lot of the questions in advance. One of the comments from Dr. Lam was about his supply lines. He was saying he procures everything in the Ottawa area. What about for your company? Are you running into issues from supply lines out of the States, China, or other areas?
Thank you for the question, Mr. McCauley. Having been in business for the better part of 20 years and with primarily an international focus to date, we have quite an extensive supply line all around the world. Traditionally, the vast majority of our supplies would come from North American sources, Canada and the United States, with some supplementation from parts of Asia, parts of Europe. We have not encountered any serious problems with that existing supply chain, but with a mind to the future, we are working with our government partners like ISED and NRC to try to move as much of that supply chain within the Canadian borders as possible. And we have an active program with them right now on doing exactly that. So I guess to answer your question simply, we have not encountered any significant issues thus far as a result of our very extensive supply chain. But I guess nobody has a crystal ball, which is why we're going to try to shore it up to be 100% within the borders.
Okay, now walk me through, please, like a dummy's guide to your product. You talked about reagents and then testing. What exactly is it that you are providing? Is it the chemicals that someone else is using for tests? Or are you producing the whole test kit? Just walk me through.
At present, the focus is on the reagents. That has been the bottleneck. So to perform these types of tests, you need to have, as had been mentioned, swabs. You need to have reagents. You need to have some disposable plastic parts. You need to have equipment, and you need to have trained personnel. Across Canada, within the provincial health laboratories, we have a very robust install base of equipment and of people, but there were bottlenecks up front in terms of the chemicals, in terms of swabs, which has been a big point in the media over the past several weeks. Where we decided that our expertise could be best suited is in helping with the reagent side of things. That had been the most unique and most critical bottleneck. So that's where we focused our initial efforts with working with PHAC. But as I mentioned, we're now looking at a larger, broader, more turnkey solution that provides all of those parts, which we have experience building, but we have a lot of capacity, a lot of expertise, especially on the reagent side.
Okay. Now, is it the government of Canada procuring from you, and then you're distributing to the provinces, or do you have separate contracts with separate provinces?
It is the federal government is doing the primary procurement and then the distribution of the products to the different provincial health laboratories. We do have some interface simply by virtue of shipping product to those provincial health laboratories, but the contract is with Canada.
Okay, and you mentioned you're in 6 different countries. Are you doing the same ramp up in those countries as well? They're all allied countries of ours, basically. Are you doing the same situation in those countries ramping up, or is it mostly just in Canada?
The vast majority of our production is actually in Canada, right here in Fredericton, and we intend to continue down that track. We're not currently ramping anything up in other countries. We're making Canada the focus, and in fact, we're breaking ground on a brand new production facility that will increase our capacity by a couple of orders of magnitude to drive it even further.
Yeah, when will that come online?
End of June.
Oh, fantastic. Is there export potential for this once we get past Canadian needs?
Once we're absolutely 100%, certain that we've met the needs of Canada, then we would look at the potential for export, yes.
Great, thanks very much. Dr. Lem, I'm going to go over to you. Thanks. Fascinating little cube. It reminds me of the Avengers Tesseract cube. Can I ask, did the government reach out to you, or did you reach out to them for this opportunity?
It was the government who reached out to us, and it was very apropos because we had already been developing our portable COVID-19 test in parallel. So it was ready when the government called us.
Yeah. How fast can you ramp up to large-scale production? And what's needed? Is it just money? Is it space? Is it more?
It's actually purely a function. It's purely a function of money, actually. So I'll show you the different components of our test. We actually make all of the components. So the swab, the actual test cartridge, and then the device.
Mother's Day is coming up. I'm thinking of picking one up for my wife.
That is our vision, to eventually get it into your bathroom. So in terms of ramping up the supply chain, what really helped was when we got the orders from the federal and provincial governments, we got, I think, about a 10% down payment. And we really put that into our suppliers because there was about a 90 to 120 day lead time to actually produce the molds and then start spitting out those plastic parts that I showed you. So we have put
I'm sorry, Mr. McCauley, we're completely out of time. I know you have more
Lem,
questions.
Thanks very much.
Hopefully we'll be able to get to it in the next round of questioning, which will now go to Mr. McKinnon for 6 minutes, please.
Merci, Monsieur le Président, et bonjour tout le monde.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and hello, everyone.
To our witnesses, Mr. Whalen, I know that name to be a New Brunswick name. So it's good to see you, and thank you for joining us. And Mr. Lem, of course, we've had a couple of encounters over the last few years, and appreciate your and your company's vigilance here. I want to, at the risk, Mr. Chair, of eliciting a groan or two from my friends across the virtual aisle, just give a tip of the hat to our procurement professionals who have worked with folks like the two witnesses that we see here today, and who I know have been going day and night to procure these vital supplies, and things like swabs, things like chemicals for reagent, for these testing regimes that we know have to become more aggressive and ramp up. So that'll be the essence of my my first question to both gentlemen. If you could keep your responses short, but perhaps we'll go to Mr. Whalen first. What do you see now as we sit here today as the supply challenges with respect to ramping up testing?
I think it's some of the more basic materials, Mr. McKinnon, things around having Canadian production facilities for swabs and some of the base chemicals that are required for reagents, having that capacity, I think will make a world of difference from a standpoint of preparedness moving forward.
And just before we go to Mr. Lem, do you see that capacity ramping up?
Yes, I do. In discussions with ICED, PSPC, PHAC, and NRC, they are already working to shore those things up.
Very good. Mr. Lem.
Thank you, Mr. McKinnon. Good to be in contact with you again. So in terms of supply chain, one of the things that we found Canada is very good at is we have tier 1 contract manufacturers who have domestic capacity. So a few weeks ago, we signed a major contract with Sanmina. They're a tier 1 contract manufacturer, and we requested that they implement more manufacturing capacity for us in their facility in Mississauga. And all we had to do was pay them, transfer over our designs, and then 90 to 120 days later, we will be able to add another capacity for 100,000 tests per week. And it can be cloned simply with more capital, which is what we're doing in Canada. And
is that capital available to you?
Yes, the government has been very good at working with us. So not only with the down payments from the federal and provincial governments, but also with BDC, they've made a line of credit available to us, and that's allowed us to scale extremely quickly.
So one of the things we talked about, diversity in supply chains, obviously very important. Diversity of testing modes is, of course, obviously important, and both of you have highlighted the features of the different kinds of testing that you are both involved with. Can you just highlight for the committee, perhaps again, we'll go to Mr. Whalen first, sort of the advantages of sort of, if I'm getting this term right, lab-based testing, and then Mr. Lem, of course, you have a more, I guess, instant type testing regime, and perhaps you could outline the advantages of that. So, Mr. Whalen.
Sure. As far as the laboratory-based or the centralized testing, the advantage there is simply scale. Being able to process very large numbers of samples relatively quickly using large equipment that is typically automated or robotic. That's where the backbone of that style of testing lies, is in these different provincial health laboratories and other private laboratories across Canada. So the benefit there is scale, being able to do it in large numbers.
So if we are going to achieve the kinds of testing numbers that we will need on an ongoing basis, that will, of course, require significant and continued investment in lab-based testing.
Yes, absolutely. And not only investment in the equipment, but also in the people, the trained professionals who can run these styles of tests. It's important to have that infrastructure, that backbone, so that we can crank out maximum numbers of tests.
And there was a chemical, was there not, that before we go to Mr. Lem again, that in terms of certainty of supply, that we needed to import from China in significant quantities. Our folks on the ground in China, as well as folks at PSPC, were able to secure that material. Can you just perhaps comment on that?
Sure. Yeah, it was an interesting situation. Supplier that we typically use, that we know to be very reliable, that makes the highest quality product in the world, and typically this material has to be shipped by boat. And we had a shipment that was scheduled, but it would have taken 30 days to cross the Pacific and make its way across Canada to us. So I floated the idea to the Public Health Agency. What if we got it on a plane? And they got us in contact with the people at PSPC, and within, I would say, a week and a half, we had it landed here in Canada, in Fredericton, safe and secure. And it was a true team effort. PHAC, PSPC, the Embassy of Canada in Beijing. There were a lot of people involved, and it's a great success story.
Unfortunately, we're completely out of time for that round. So we'll now go to Madame Vignola. 6 minutes, s'il vous plaît.
6 minutes, please. Good morning. My first questions rather, will be for Mr. Whalen from Lumen Ultra. Before your contract, had you already made COVID test kits for COVID-19?
Thank you for the question. The answer to that is no. We were making similar technologies, measuring similar things, bacteria and other viruses, but not COVID-19 specifically.
OK. De façon.
Okay. So generally speaking, you had never prepared those exact test kits, but now you're being asked to make 500,000 of them per week. Where are you at in the production process on a weekly basis? And when do you think you'll reach that 500,000 test kit objective?
We actually already have. So by saying we have not produced this a test for COVID before, perhaps is a bit of a mistake on my side. What we are producing are the chemical reagents that are universal for measuring any virus, including the novel coronavirus. And we have produced that before. We have ramped up from producing, several tens of thousands of tests per week to 500,000 tests per week. And in fact, we've gone beyond that. We just shipped our millionth tests today. And we're already at a point where we're shipping 500,000 tests per week moving forward.
Excellent. Parlant.
Excellent. Now, in terms of reagent, is there a possibility that those may be created in Canada or North America rather than China?
Yes, absolutely. In fact, in working with the different government partners that I've mentioned, they have already identified basic chemical manufacturers where many of these raw materials that are currently sourced outside of Canada can be synthesized and produced in large quantities within our borders. So I think we're already on our way there.
Good. L'entente que vous avez.
Good. So for the agreement you have with the Government of Canada, what period does it span? What's the total value?
The total value is approximately $102 million for these 25 to 26 million tests over the next year. So the span of the contract goes until March 31st, 2021.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much. Mr. Lem, your little box is very interesting. It'd be great to have those boxes available in hotspots like seniors' homes and at the border. I can see that you are trying to make it like a self-diagnostic kit. And you answered one of my questions, that is whether you'd already created this kind of test, made this kind of test for the COVID-19, for the coronavirus itself. Do you also do the analysis or just the kits, whether it's on the DNA side or the virus side?
It's a self-contained kit. So think of it like a blood glucose meter. So This gives you everything you need, and you can plug it into a laptop or a tablet, and it'll tell you your COVID-19 result. So you need nothing else external. It's all self-contained.
OK.
Oh, I see. So your company doesn't do the analysis or DNA analysis?
That's correct. So the DNA analysis is automatically done there's an onboard microprocessor with our special algorithms. So it does everything. So this is why we believe this is the future of diagnostics, because right now you have to ship those swabs off to a central lab. PhD has to analyze the results. And then that's why it takes days or even a week to get your results back. But we've seen with blood glucose meters and home pregnancy tests, eventually technology gets so affordable and so easy to use that people are actually able to administer it themselves. And that's the vision of our company.
Le test COVID.
The test kit you're providing for COVID-19, is there a DNA side to it, or is it really focused on the COVID-19 result?
Yes, so COVID-19 is a virus, and our test cartridge, it extracts the genetic material from the COVID-19 virus, amplifies it up 1 billion times, and then detects it and analyzes it and gives the user what the result is automatically.
But it doesn't analyze the DNA of the user, just the DNA of the virus.
That's correct. So there's no privacy concerns from analyzing the human DNA. It only looks for the presence or absence of the coronavirus genetic material.
Thank you very much. Unfortunately, we're out of time, but we'll now go to Mr. Green for 6 minutes, please. Mr. Green.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. This is certainly a fascinating glimpse into the supply chain and the response, the federal government response to COVID. And I want to echo and share my deep appreciation to both of you for your respective contributions in this time of crisis. It's significant. And I know that the Canadians who are tuning in are going to be watching with equal interest. I can't, though, shake the future prospect of reoccurring epidemics like this. And I just want to explore, we've heard today from Mr. Whalen about the order of magnitude in scaling up his business. We heard about the procurement of chemical reagents. I'm just wondering, for either of you, were you previously contracted with the government in any way? Have you had government contracts before?
Answering first, sorry, Dr. Lem. The answer to that is no, not in Canada. We have had government contracts in other jurisdictions.
Mr. Lem?
For our company, we had a government contract for Legionnaire's disease testing. So with the same small device and the same cartridges.
And I don't know the appropriateness, but I'm going to put the question anyways. Were these both single source contracts, just in terms of your capabilities and this emergency protocol that we have now?
I can't speak to whether the supply of reagents is a single source. There are other companies out there that do provide similar things. I think we were simply able to provide a custom material that PHAC was looking for to be able to fuel the provincial health laboratories. As far as dealings with other parties, I can't speak to that.
For us, for the best of our knowledge, there's only 5 FDA-approved portable DNA analyzer companies in the world. We're the only ones in Canada, 2 in the US, 2 in Europe. And so what we heard from our provincial customers was there are soft export bans on our competitors where their home countries are keeping all their supply for themselves. So I think that's how we got the contracts with the federal and provincial governments.
No, it's critically important because there has been an ongoing conversation about the National Emergency Strategic Stockpile Supply. And I heard Mr. Whalen talk about the term of his contract. I heard him talk about perhaps March 31st of 2021. In your modeling, have you started to envision what it would look like in terms of requirements to replenish domestic stockpiles before you start to shift into export? And has that been a condition or a feature in your contract with the federal government that you do provide that support forward-facing into whatever phase comes next of this?
Yeah, I would say it's something that we have certainly thought about on our side, which is why we're looking at a more permanent solution to scale up our production. So we are thinking about that on our side. We have not yet engaged in any substantive discussions with anybody at PHAC or other agencies about a longer-term engagement, but we're very much open to it when and if the time comes.
For our company, we've been highlighting to the government that we are facing overwhelming demand from foreign governments. I think there's over 20 of them, foreign corporations who want to buy all of our supply starting in the summer once we have more. And right now, PHAC is creating a model as to how much of their supply they're going to want. And this is where I think it's going to be important that Canada establishes some sort of stockpile or something like that, because otherwise, literally, if we offered our supply right now, we could sell $1 billion worth worldwide within a week.
Yeah, I got to share that concern with you just in terms of basic economic supply and demand, where we're at right now with this crisis. And I'm a little bit concerned about the ability to import the necessary chemicals and whatever the production inputs might be. Have you found volatility in that market? And if so, in terms of shortages and costs, how has it put an upward price or pressure on the price per unit that you all are offering our government?
Speaking for our side, I can say that just based on that international supply chain we already had established and the supplier relationships that we've had established, we were lucky to be able to get out in front of the supply chain aspect early on and basically be able to stockpile material ourselves. So to date, we have not had any serious constraints in that regard, but things are changing daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly at this point. And we are working around the clock on that supply chain challenge. And as I mentioned, working to try that Canadian domestic supply, get that ramped up as well.
Similar to Mr. Whalen, so I think our big advantage is we make our swabs and our cartridges here in Ottawa, and we own all the intellectual property and designs around it. So we can then bring on contract manufacturers like Sanmina and specify that we want them to actually manufacture, for example, in Mississauga. So
I only got like 30 seconds left. Have your per unit costs of your products changed since the pandemic began?
Yes, with this amount of scale, I think starting in the summertime, our cost of the goods is going to go lower. And that's where we've already been negotiating with the government. For example, we're dropping the price of our devices by 50% starting in the summertime.
Mr. Whalen?
Ours have already started off fairly low, just given the robustness of our existing infrastructure. So I would say they have not changed.
I really appreciate having you both on today, and thank you for providing your expertise. And my last question is, are you anticipating additional hires as you scale up, and what does that look like quite quickly?
For myself, we're looking at somewhere between 25 and 30 people over the next 2 or 3 months, and probably acceleration beyond that.
Similar for us, probably 20 to 30 people in the next 2 months. And then with that contract manufacturing in Mississauga, that'll probably be several hundred people. Then we'll probably add another 200 or 300 people over the next several years.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Gentlemen, both before we go to the next round, Mr. Whalen and Mr. Lem, I know you'd both indicated you must be leaving at 12 noon. Is still that your plan, or do you have an opportunity to stay slightly longer than that?
I could certainly extend by another 10, 15 minutes if required, Mr. Chair.
Unfortunately, I have a board meeting that starts right at 12, so I cannot extend.
Thank you very much. Colleagues, then we will go on to our next round of 5-minute interventions. However, we will not be able to conclude it, although Mr. Whalen has indicated he will stay for the second round, but we have to conclude at 12 noon to try and allow our next witness an ample opportunity to present testimony and for questions. We will go then to our second round of 5-minute interventions, starting with Mr. Abouteff. 5 minutes, please, sir.
Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Whalen and Mr. Lem. Beautiful presentations. We have 37 million Canadians, and we know this is going to be an ongoing process. As long as we live, we're probably going to have those testing equipment. What you anticipate that the quantities needed, at least for the time being, in order to be able to serve Canada in terms of equipment and in terms of kits?
Well, I think from the equipment side of things, we certainly need, as Dr. Lem pointed out, we need to have equipment available that can go in more places than just in large laboratory settings, which is something we're working on as well, having smaller scale, multiple sample processing equipment that can go in different places like clinics and smaller hospitals, things of that nature. As far as the testing demand, yes, we need many, many more tests. There are different forms of tests. Dr. Lem and I are both focused on nucleic acid testing or RNA testing. There is other testing to do with serology that we will see coming on the market, but it still needs to go up by, at least an order of magnitude, and that's what we are planning around in our future business planning.
Will you be able to provide specific quantities and how many units we're looking for?
Well, we're ramping up our production to be able to provide 20 to 30 million tests per week. That's the number we're shooting for.
What about Mr. Lem?
We're ramping up our production to over 10 million tests per year, because we believe that in the foreseeable future, we're going to be a complement to tests like Mr. Wayland's. So high throughput will be done with the lab, and then remote communities will be done with us. My
understanding, Mr. Lem, that most of your raw material needed to produce the equipment is from within Canada. That is good news. For Mr. Wayland, I understand that some of the chemicals that we don't have in Canada. The question is why?
Well, there are certain chemicals that are shared between both what we and Dr. Lem do. We have similar base materials of very sophisticated enzymes and other base chemicals that are primarily manufactured in the United States. Why those have not been manufactured in Canada, I'm not the best people to speak to, but I suspect it's because the border has been so open and fluid over the years that really a domestic supply wasn't necessary. There's such a large manufacturing install base in the United States that it was simply easier to get it there.
We know when at crisis such as the one we're going through right now, every country wants to look after its own citizens. And we saw what happened with the 3M masks. What do you know for sure that we don't have the ability to produce that chemical in Canada? I think, is there an area we need to explore further to make sure that we can do it? We can have the self-sufficiency, at least when it comes to the life of our people. I think we need to have that.
Yes, absolutely. And as I commented previously, we are already doing that. The good news is that the capabilities are absolutely available here in Canada. It's simply a matter of putting the right people and the right equipment to bear on the right things. And we're going to be able to do it.
One final question, how we're doing on human resources for both companies, for Spartan and for Lumen Ultra. By the way, beautiful company names, both. So how are we doing on human resources? Do we have enough human resources in Canada to upscale the production and to be able to serve our markets?
Thanks, Mr. Wayland. One of the great advantages of Ottawa is actually the global hub of excellence for point-of-care blood chemistry analyzers. There's two companies, Abbott iStat, and then there's Alere Epical. And so they have generated billions of dollars in sales over the last decades. So they have that deep personnel expertise that we've actually been hiring to complement our scale up.
Mr. Wayland?
And then speaking for Atlantic Canada is one of the best kept secrets, of course, in North America, and that we have some of the friendliest and hardest working people in North America, if not the world. But we also have some of the smartest people in the world as well. And we believe we can scale up effectively through the population here in Atlantic Canada, as well as Atlantic Canadians that would like to repatriate from other parts of the country.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Wayland and Mr. Lem. We'll now go to Mr. Weiler for 5 minutes, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Mr. Wayland and Mr. Lem, for joining our committee today. I'm going to jump right into it here. Whereabouts throughout Canada are your tests going by province?
So for us, there are 10 different provincial health laboratories, one in each province. And then the National Microbiology Laboratory in Winnipeg. So we are shipping to those 11 specific locations.
And for our company, it's the same. So our contract with the federal government goes to National Microbiology Lab. Then we have separate contracts with the provincial governments and also with the territories.
Great. And you mentioned that some of your tests are going to be dropping in the per test cost. I'm just wondering what the cost of your tests are right now and where you see those going in the future.
So from our side, we are providing one component of the overall test regime. So the per test cost for us is around $3.50. And then there are some other components that are sourced from other locations, which we're currently looking at shoring up those supply lines as well.
For our product, our device costs $8,000 Canadian, and our per test cost, which includes everything, swab, cartridge, obviously everything reduced to test, is $73 Canadian.
Great. And you both mentioned earlier looking into the future as we're kind of getting to another stage in recovering from this pandemic. You mentioned a potential change of your production to focus more on environmental testing. I'm curious what exactly that would look like for both of your technologies.
Yeah, so for us, similar to Dr. Lem's company, our traditional business is providing more of a complete test kit where we provide the swabs, we provide the equipment, and all of the reagents as well. So we already have a version of this style of test that would be used for testing surfaces, testing air, testing water and sewage as well. All of the vectors of potential point-to-point contamination for COVID-19 and other pathogenic diseases. So the way that it would work would be identical to the way it's used for testing people. The only difference is where you take the sample from.
And for us, our environmental testing is a relatively small part of our business. What we are now moving towards is we want to drive the cost of the devices down and also increase what we call the test menu. So in addition to offering COVID-19, we're looking at offering strep, flu, chlamydia, gonorrhea. And then for future variants of COVID for other seasons, we will then be able to release rapidly a test for, let's say, COVID-20, COVID-21, and already have that installed base already ready to run these different cartridges as we release them.
Great. And one of the big challenges we're going to have going forward is being able to trace all the different cases. And I'm wondering, how can your products incorporate contract tracing in its software? And how can once you test positive, would it be possible to in some way connect to some type of contract or contact tracing? And how can we ensure that the data that's produced from your test best gets to the different health agencies in Canada?
That is something that we are investigating, as we do have a very large software infrastructure, cloud-based software infrastructure. We're just getting into understanding the possibilities of that right now. But we're following the old adage at the moment of focus on the things that you need to focus on now and leave the other stuff to the future. So we haven't gotten too far in the software discussion, but there would absolutely be a lot of potential there.
For us, we actually just hired a VP software and data, used to be a top person at Shopify. And so that person is going to be building out this contact tracing implementation. For example, Toby Luki, the CEO and founder of Shopify, is actually leading a team to develop this software. There's another team that just got approved by Health Canada called Thrive. And we're also working with NML and the provincial lab information systems for how we're going to do this.
Great. And lastly, because I'm running out of time, what measures are you taking within your company to protect your workers?
A very difficult question, but very quick answer, if you could, please.
We have strict social distancing or physical distancing procedures, shift work, maximum number of people that can be on site at a given time, and most of our staff are working from home.
Thank you very much. Our final 5-minute intervention in this round will be Mr. Redikoff. Mr. Redikoff, 5 minutes, please.
Thank you. Thank you guys for being here. I want to pursue a little bit with Mr. Lem about the price of these units. You indicated they were about $8,000 currently. Can you give us an indication of where you see them coming to? And if Mr. McCauley, for example, wants to buy one for his wife in the bathroom, that's a fairly expensive Mother's Day present.
Yes. So we've already agreed with the government as of, I believe it's July, the price will come down by 50%. So it'll go down to 4,000 Canadian. And then we're about to launch a redesign effort that hopefully within 6 to 9 months will drive that further down, probably to the few thousand dollar mark. But our ultimate goal is to get this to the several $100 mark. So like a blood glucose meter, no one will have to think twice about purchasing one of these things.
Right, and there's probably a large market for that. You mentioned also that if you were to put this on the market right now, you would have no trouble selling all of your inventory to whoever, and you were looking for the government to provide some guidelines. How do you see that moving forward so that you are able to sell those to Canadians as Canadians need them and not send them overseas or to other countries?
So the way we're planning internally is first we're giving the government the first shot at all of our future supply. And once they tell us that they don't want any more, our second phase is to give it to Canadian corporations. And after we've satisfied that domestic demand, then we'll open it up to foreign governments. Another thing we're looking at is we are in discussions with foreign governments about potentially setting up actually manufacturing within their country and basically having some sort of license where we give our designs and our intellectual property. And then that doesn't affect our supply in Canada.
And where are you at with the federal government on those negotiations, and what sort of responses are you getting from them?
We've had excellent interaction with ICED, PSPC, and also PHAC. So where it is right now is PHAC is creating a model as to how many Canadians will have to be tested for getting back to work. And then once they have those numbers, then we will hopefully be negotiating a contract for increasing that supply to meet that demand.
In my riding and many others, there have been different companies that have been contacting the government about supplying products. I think there's been 26,000 inquiries to the government to this point. Can both of you comment a little bit on your experience working with the government? Was the process smooth? Was there glitches that you had with that? What sorts of experiences did you have? Maybe start with Mr. Whalen.
I would say, in these crazy times that we live in, the experience was exemplary. So I had mentioned in my opening statement that we started on March 20th after the call to action by the Prime Minister, and within only a couple of days, we had gotten in touch with the people we knew could help the most, which is at PHAC. And it has been, literally nights, weekends, whatever it took. As far as engagement with the people out in Winnipeg and with people at PSPC in Ottawa, NRC and NACOA, all over the place. It has been very, very fast and very strong communication.
I agree with Mr. Whalen as a sense of time. So I think Prime Minister Trudeau announced a letter of intent with us, our company, on March 20th. By March 25th, PSPC had inked a contract with us. And similarly on the Health Canada side, because we're a regulatory approved device, they had a team standing by evenings, weekends. As soon as we submitted data, they reviewed it immediately.
Maybe just an internal question about how you guys are operating a little bit in this new environment regarding PPE and specifically. Has that been an issue for you in terms of providing procedures and guidelines for your staff and PPE in your actual workplaces?
We haven't had any limitations ourselves. We already use substantial amounts of PPE in our manufacturing facilities. So we had gloves and N95 masks and face shields and all these things already on hand. And we haven't had any kind of interruption in that supply chain just based on its maturity.
I think our added advantage, in addition to what Mr. Whalen said, we have those equipment too. We actually test our employees every 3 days because we have all these portable COVID-19 tests.
Yes, I guess that's an advantage you have. How much time do I have, Tom?
Very little, Mr. Redikoff. I would like to suggest that we shut off your questioning now so that I can thank both our witnesses, Mr. Whalen and Mr. Lem. Your testimony has been fascinating and extremely helpful to our committee. Mr. Lem, I understand you have to leave right now for a meeting. And Mr. Whalen, you indicated you would be willing to stay for an extra 10 or 15 minutes. Please stay connected, Mr. Whalen. I'm not sure whether there'd be time for any questions of you, but you can certainly leave the meeting when you have an opportunity or when you have to. With that, colleagues, we're going to suspend for just a moment while we set up for our next witness. We are suspended. witness is Dr. Kevin Smith from the University Health Network. Dr. Smith, the floor is yours. I would ask you if you could keep your remarks as concise as possible, since we've lost a little bit of time due to technology problems, because we must adjourn at 1 p.m. sharp. But Mr. Smith or Dr. Smith, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's a pleasure for me to be before your committee today. I wanted to first recognize the Government of Canada's quick motion on the development of programs during this unprecedented time of COVID-19. This pandemic has been devastating to those infected and, of course, their families, debilitating economically to many, both individuals and businesses. I'd also like to talk today a bit about how much it's affected our research enterprise. And it's a stark and shocking reality to civil society about our most vulnerable citizens, particularly our frail seniors in long-term care. In my humble opinion, it's critical for this committee and all Canadians to learn from this global pandemic and better prepare for the future with COVID and other infectious diseases that will indeed visit us in the future. I do want to mention that Health Canada, the Public Health Agency of Canada, the Deputy Prime Minister's Office, many ministers, staff, and the entire public service, including the Canadian Armed Forces in the case of our long-term care community, have been accessible and available and reactive, at least to those outreaches that University Health Network has been fortunate to make, as well as our local MPs and their staff. Our focus, in my view, has to be on protecting the most at-risk populations, as well as protecting providers who, as we know, have struggled with personal protective equipment and the very fragile supply chain and research ecosystem. No doubt there will be a new world order for healthcare and health after this pandemic, and that does call us to look at a new model of funding and the structure to fund healthcare from coast to coast to coast. Healthcare costs have outstripped funding for a number of years across the continuum of care. Nowhere has that been more obvious in this pandemic than for our frail and for those living in sheltered environments. We also want to look at a new social contract, in my view, between Ottawa, the provinces and territories as we move to a pan-Canadian approach post-pandemic. We also know this pandemic is likely to revisit us in other waves in the not-so-distant future. I would encourage the committee to engage providers and, more importantly, consumers and families, as well as the three levels of government that we've worked with throughout this pandemic, including the municipalities that have been so essential to public health. Long-term care and congregate care must receive a deep dive and a better understanding of where we go from here. I would also encourage a look at asking first, what problems are we trying to solve they're clearly defined and why they are being solved in this order. Number one for me is looking at frail and vulnerable Canadians and their subpopulations. Number two would look at the supply chain and the lack of Canadian production of PPE, drugs, ventilators, and a number of other issues related to access, as well as a healthy stockpile. It surprised me to discover that one of the things keeping me up at night during this pandemic, as the CEO of Canada's largest and most research-intensive hospital, the University Health Network, was actually the production and reception of swabs, not our highest tech technology, but an incredibly important one in a pandemic. I'll close, Mr. Chair, by focusing on the very fragile hospital-based research ecosystem and the vulnerability of the people who make that up. These are all people who live, and I don't mean the principal investigators, but their staff, research assistants, graduate students, research nurses, postdoctoral fellows, very fragile, and the funding for it even more fragile. Most of this work has been funded by third-party dollars and foundations and industry, all of whom have been decimated in many ways by this. And the research tap has been firmly turned off for this population, which could result in the loss of a highly skilled workforce at a time we need research colleagues more than ever. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee.
Thank you very much, Dr. Smith. We'll now go into our first 6-minute round of interventions, starting with Mr. Redikoff.
Thank you, Mr. Smith, for being here today. It's good to have you, and I appreciate all the work that you and your hospitals are doing in this pandemic. Let's just maybe pick up right with where you just ended there on research funding. Have you noticed any changes since this pandemic started, or is it too soon to say what you're seeing out there for funding?
Yeah, we have noticed a great deal of change. So a number of organizations have indicated that they would not be able to continue to meet their research funding commitments. A number of private agencies and foundations. Others have said, please pause. We don't know what our fiscal position is. For all of our hospital-based foundations and university-related fundraising, the returns on investment are obviously very threatened. These are often concluded by looking at investment revenue, which we know has been dramatically affected, much more so than in 2008 when we saw the last very significant shock to research funding. In addition, we continue to work with the Tri-Councils and CFI, which is encouraging, but again, for the population that are related to industrial sponsored research, with the impact on industry's funding and industry's revenue streams, we are also seeing a pause. In the very near future, within the next 2 weeks, if we don't find a better structure and strategy, there literally has the capacity to be approximately 10 to 15,000 layoffs in the research community nationally.
Wow. Is Thornhill Medical one of the organizations that's associated with your health network? I know that I read that they do ventilator production.
Yes, so one of the founders or one of the scientific directors, Dr. Joe Fisher, is a member of the medical staff, a distinguished member and researcher at University Health Network. It was a spin-off, actually, of some of the research done some 25 years ago at UHN. And during this process, through the procurement of the Government of Ontario and the Government of Canada, we have secured a number of both ventilators and what I think the company markets as an ICU in a box, very impressive products, often deployed to military installations for field hospitals.
And did you approach them or did they approach you? And was that a sole source contract?
We did approach them. We did not source. We did source on behalf of the province of Ontario. Ontario Health actually requested the support of UHN, our procurement division, because we were set up in a large enterprise to do so. We then worked closely with two ministries, Ministry of Health and the Ministry of Economic Development. And the Government of Ontario made the decision on selecting them as a vendor and then instructed us to purchase.
And was there any, I assume there's patents involved in this, was there any talk or provision for outsourcing production of this to other manufacturers?
Yes, one of my other hats, I was asked to lead the command table for critical care in Ontario during this pandemic. And very much so, the Premier and his colleagues convened us with a number of large production facilities, large enterprise, particularly auto manufacturing, for the conversion of those environments to ventilators. I would have to say that because of the urgent need, the time frame for converting an auto manufacturing environment to a medical supply company has been significant and not without challenge. The other piece which members of this committee will appreciate is many of the parts and source materials for ventilators and other products cross our borders multiple times before a final product is realized. That's also introduced some challenge into a very rapid time frame of both production and then distribution. So the numbers produced in the short term have been modest.
How do you protect yourself from a patent perspective when you're allowing other people to build your products?
I should be clear, not our product any longer. So a spin-off from UHN, Thornhill has done so, as I understand it, with the purchasers. A number of vendors, I'll just speak of a couple that I know of. I'm sure there are many more, but there are a number of now open source ventilators as an example. So there's a project in Ireland that has provided open source. Many of you will have heard that Medtronic, a multinational company that produces ventilators, has taken one of their older, simpler machines and made it open source and waived any patent issue for the production during the pandemic period.
Switching over to PPE, I noticed on your you have a standard of ethics on purchasing, and I'm just wondering is that been challenging in this environment, trying to get PPE and source it first of all and have good quality PPE?
It has been very challenging, as we know very little of this material, or the more common materials, have continued to be made in North America. So most of it has been attempted to be sourced internationally, while at the same time, literally, the world is sourcing those materials. Working with the Government of Canada, we were the purchasing agent for a very large number of masks and other supplies. which unfortunately did not come to fruition in the order of 100 million masks. And unfortunately, we have not seen the large orders internationally be realized and land on ground. This was complicated slightly, forgive me to interrupt you, this was complicated slightly, I think, by some transport to the continental United States with an expectation it would then be shipped to Canada, while during that time the United States government made some changes in what they were willing to ship outside of the country.
Thank you very much. We'll now go to our next intervener, Mr. McKinnon. 6 minutes, please.
Are you sure it's me? I thought it was Mr. Drouin.
It can be anyone you wish, Mr. McKinnon. I had you down on our list, but if you wish to cede your time to one of your colleagues, go right ahead. We can't hear you, though, Mr. McKinnon. You've got your microphone up. There we go. Did you wish to cede your time to one of your colleagues?
It's Mr. Kuzmierczak that's up.
Okay, that's fine. I had Mr. McKinnon on my list, but Mr. Kuzmierczak, 6 minutes to you, sir.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you very much, Dr. Smith, for your presentation. I wanted to wish you a happy National Physicians Day today to you and all of your colleagues that are doing tremendous work across our country in these critical times. So please do pass that along from all of us. I just wanted to ask you, the Government of Canada announced, I think last week, Prime Minister Trudeau announced a $1.1 billion pledge for funding towards vaccine development, towards clinical trials and countrywide testing. And I'm just wondering whether you had an opportunity yet to speak with officials about that announcement and how that funding will be making its way to organizations like UHN.
Yes, thank you very much. I have had a chance, both through our elected officials as well as the Tri-Councils and other research officials with the Government of Canada. A number of our investigators have already been fortunate to receive awards from the Government of Canada for COVID-related research. We actually had to cease the majority of research when this occurred, when COVID occurred, and immediately ramped up again so that we could undertake COVID research during the epidemic. At the same time, our researchers, always industrious people, have come up with important scientific questions, both from an applied and curiosity-driven level. One of the more pressing issues has been with our virology and immunology group, the creation of a vaccine. I'm also very encouraged by the investment, but also by the degree of partnership that I'm seeing across the country. Research can often be seen as a solitary enterprise. And I would say I have never seen our nation, or frankly, our scientific world, more united in asking important questions and collaborating across the country and the world with literally the very best minds of their disciplines in an open source science, collaborating in real time.
That's wonderful. Thank you very much for that response. I know that our previous witnesses, Mr. Len and Mr. Whalen, talked about exemplary collaboration and cooperation with the federal government, in particular with PHAC, with ICED, and PSPC. Are you able to speak to how those particular departments or ministries, you've been able to work with them, and are you able to sort of speak to how helpful they've been in the work that you're doing right now? Also in the work that you're doing in the collaboration with third-party private sector companies, especially.
Mm-hmm. Yes, they've all been, there has been a very rapid response, I have to say. I think I'll quote our in-house legal counsel, who said, in all of my career legally, I have never seen things done more quickly on any issue between multiple levels of government and the private sector. So people have truly rolled up their sleeves and really done their very, very best, both in research and in attempting to crack the supply chain challenges. With PHAC, again, very accessible, available. Much of that has come through our Chief Medical Officers of Health, but direct outreach also. I know PHAC has been very active in the reagent pursuit, particularly for testing. Personally, based on the expertise of my colleagues in virology and immunology, I think we will be looking at a massive testing and tracing strategy going forward. I know Dr. Naylor is chairing a committee nationally that will be looking more broadly at this. I was heartened today to see in South Korea, this is their first day with 0 new cases. And I think there is much to be learned internationally by looking at those first who the pandemic struck earlier, and second by those who are now coming out of it and what's been most effective. PHAC has also, I think, been openly available for consultation with our infectious disease experts. Health Canada, a special shout out to the Deputy Minister, who's been available, accessible, and readily reaching out to the field. So I have to say, while hospitals can be places where we're quick to be critical about things during difficult times, or maybe not so difficult times, the response and the collaboration across multiple levels of government, including in our case, the City of Toronto, has really been second to none in terms of the ability to roll up our sleeves and get going. We are, however, very frustrated by some of those things that don't happen quickly, that are beyond the control of any level of government, particularly the international supply of personal protective equipment and testing equipment. And I suspect that we'd run the risk of that being true in vaccine production when, and hopefully not if, but when a vaccine becomes rapidly available.
Yeah, and you had mentioned on social media, and I saw that you applauded the City of Los Angeles' decision to make testing free of charge to anyone that wants it in that particular city. What do you see as the major obstacles for us to be able to have widespread testing capacity across Canada?
In about a 30-second answer, if possible, Doctor.
Yep, yes, sir, Mr. Chair. 2 quick issues. One, I would say availability of supplies, which we'll crack the back of in the fullness of time. Secondly, I would say there is a divide sometimes among public health professionals and infectious disease and epidemiologists about the value of testing large populations. I would err on the side of more data allows us to answer better questions in the long term with a data set that will allow future investigators to understand this pandemic better than most. I also would love to see Canada as the place that has the most robust data set.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Doctor.
We'll now go to our block intervener. Madame Vignola, did you wish to take this round or did you wish to cede your time to Mr. Bossalou-Duval?
J'aimerais céder mon temps à Monsieur.
I'd like to cede my time to Mr. Duval. I do have tons of questions, but I will give him the floor.
Monsieur Bossalou-Duval, 6 minutes.
Mr. Bossalou-Duval, 6 minutes, please. Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Smith, for being here with us today, virtually. I was listening to you earlier, to your opening remarks, and you were saying that it would be necessary for a new social contract to be put in place between Ottawa and the provinces. Could you be more specific? What were you referring to about that?
I'm sorry, I got it and I didn't hear a translation. I'm under.
I don't know. I can't hear you speaking either. Is there an interpretation problem or is it a sound problem?
I'll ask Mr. Clerk if there's a translation I could receive for that.
Dr. Smith will try and see if we can get this resolved. Paul, if you can check with our interpreters and our technicians.
Dr. Smith, it's Mr. Redekop here. If you go up to the 3 dots on your iPad, I think you said if you go in there, there might be something called interpretation, and then you can select English.
Language interpretation. Very good. Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Avez-vous besoin que je pose?
Do you need to hear my question again in that case, since you weren't on the English channel? All right. So my question, Mr. Smith, was that you said in your opening remarks that it would be necessary to have a new social contract between Ottawa and the provinces in terms of health. I'd like you to be a bit more specific. Could you tell us more about that? What did you mean exactly by that?
Well, when I look at what particularly some of the areas that have fallen through the cracks, the areas that have, particularly in seniors care and congregate living environments, I don't really like to always start with money. I recognize money is just our tool, but over the last number of years, what was once a 50-50 split between Ottawa and the provinces has, for probably very good reason, shifted. There is a great debate about what the number is today. Some would say it's 30 cents, some others would say it's 22 cents. So the debate I would leave to the experts. But I do think that we see the consequences of costs increasing beyond funding. In most healthcare systems in the world, we're seeing a 4 to 5% increase per year. In many of those, I'll just give you an example at University Health Network. In the last year, we saw a 0.3% increase, meaning that every year we're looking for approximately 3% savings in a system at the same time with a population growth and aging at 1.9%. So unless we revisit how we're going to cost share these programs, then I believe we continue to run the risk of them being further eroded. And my great worry, of course, is that those with the least loud voice, shelter dwelling, homeless, and seniors do least well in a system where resources are scarce.
Je vais devoir prendre la relève.
I'll have to take over because my colleague seems to have lost his connection. So, following the SARS crisis in 2003, what was done in terms of research in Canada on COVID?
So following SARS was a great, merci beaucoup for the question. Following SARS was a very significant report, as you know, again done by Dr. Naylor and a group of very distinguished Canadians and scientists who reacted to it. And I would say that COVID virus per se, COVID type viruses have been researched for a great long time. They're a complex virus and defined by their shape. So I think there has been a significant amount of virology research undertaken, but I would say that it's been such a rapid uptake of this illness and the concern about being able to create vaccines. I think my colleagues in immunology would say that research funding in this domain has not kept pace with risk. Many of those who've blown the whistle in science have said quite loudly that the basic sciences, particularly the science of immunology and virology, has not kept pace with the superbugs that we're seeing developed in places like intensive care units and beyond. And their prediction, sadly, was correct, that the next global pandemic is likely to be related to viruses that are difficult to control, and because of the nature of travel today, spread virulently and aggressively.
Écoutez, vous êtes en avant.
Well, you've anticipated my next question. If memory serves, for polio, I believe it took 22 years of research when there was no technology the same way we have today, and various 5 other attempts that led to various results. Since 2003, after SARS, scientists have been telling us that it was going to blow up in our faces, just as you said. But there have been cuts made to the sciences throughout the world. Is Canada one of those countries that cut deeply into research funding?
I have to confess, I haven't fully looked at the data from SARS till the present, 17 years ago. My impression is that while research funding has increased in dollar value every year, it's not unlike the hospital story, that the costs of research have massively outstripped those increases. The second piece is we're a little bit a victim of our success. If you look at the increased volume of funding in research, but then cross-reference that to the number of PhD scientists being prepared, while the number of the dollar amount has gone up, the dollar per scientist, because we actually have invested well in the training of future scientists, has gone down. So we haven't actually done a fabulous job in matching the output of young scientists and giving them a clear career path and the operating grant dollars in order to be effective.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. We'll now go to Mr. Green for 6 minutes, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. And I'd like to begin by first just acknowledging the fantastic Dr. Kevin Smith, who, although is in Toronto currently, we still claim him in Hamilton for his 25 years of service at St. Joseph's Hospital, where, of course, Dr. Smith, you led the way through some very significant strategic partnerships. We now know that this, in your new role, that you're also creating health networks in the Toronto area. My first and most obvious question, coming from Hamilton Centre, is what types of collaborations are you seeing with, for instance, McMaster University or Hamilton Health Sciences or the other world-class health research bodies across the country?
Nice to see you again, Mr. Green, and thank you for your service. Nice to see a leader from Hamilton back in the Government of Canada. So great, I would say great question and great collaboration. So both at the clinical level, Hamilton Health Sciences, St. Joseph's Health System are very actively involved at the provincial tables and at the federal tables. As you know, health being a provincial delivery responsibility, it's been more focused there. One, in looking at both the coordination of care, Hamilton leading the way in creating an integrated care system from primary care right through to hospice and palliative care. I think much of what this disease will show us and has shown us is the lack of concentration on the latter parts for frail citizens and underhoused citizens. Again, an area that Hamilton has thrived in championing. I think the other pieces of this are the collaboration in research. Just an example, the laboratories at University Health Network and the Hamilton Regional Laboratory System, which operates within both of the hospitals, under both of the hospitals in Hamilton's supervision, are already collaborating and coming up with very creative ideas like perhaps we through our laboratory system should be producing our own swabs, our own medium, and a number of other technologies and testing analyses that would allow us not to be dependent on the international marketplace where, frankly, Canada is a small player and we don't always get to the trough first. Those who buy the most product often are those who get the quickest response. Unfortunately, our response has not been as rapid as we'd like in a number of key diagnostic areas.
And why do you think that is?
Well, I think everyone, literally everyone around the world is looking for the same products at the same time. Number one. I think number two, stockpile management. We probably could do a better job on ensuring that we're swapping out stockpiles. I think many people, not only Canada or Ontario, as we went to the stockpile, found stale dated activities, stale dated masks and other things that said we might be wiser in inventory management to think about how we renew and swap out products within stockpiles. The same would be true for things as complicated as ventilators. For example, those that we bought after SARS 17 years ago are not the state-of-the-art material of today. So I think there is a whole opportunity for us to reevaluate how inventory management occurs and certainly how supply chain occurs.
I couldn't agree more. And if you have tuned into previous sessions of this committee, you'll know that I've been talking about the National Emergency Strategic Stockpile supply ad nauseum, and I'll continue to do that. But as it relates to kind of the gray area, I'll call it, between the hyper-competitive world of research within post-secondary and the private sector, you've referenced Thornhill Medical as a technologies corporation that is affiliated with the UHN and has received some support from the government, or at least letters of intent. In this phase, in this crisis, in this emergency, how is the data that's being produced publicly by publicly funded institutions like our universities and hospitals being shared in an open source way across all private sectors as well as public research bodies? Because my concern is that the proprietary nature of publicly funded research might slow down the process of getting things to the marketplace. Can you just share your thoughts on that?
Sure. I would say that at the moment, the focus of research has really been rapid result and rapid sharing of information. As you know, science is a self-organizing enterprise. People get grants, publish results, share them openly. There's always this debate about, should I publish my work or should I not publish it so it can be patented and result in economic prosperity for the inventor as well as the nation. At this point in time, I see no investigators who are not fully and completely divulging information rapidly and with massive uptake. So as you can see, the Twitter sphere, which I'm new to, but literally and within hours of results, we're seeing people share that information.
Is there any policy directives, if I could, sorry, Dr. Smith? Is there anything when you're dealing with the hundreds of millions of dollars that are going out in funding for clinical trials and startups and innovation, do you know of anything that is actually within the policies or the contracts of the federal government that require it in this time of emergency to be shared broadly, or is there still the opportunity for proprietary use of the technology?
Yeah, so I believe, to my knowledge, I can't think of a single federally funded or supported clinical trial that doesn't encourage rapid sharing. That is different for private sector funded research. The majority of clinical trials are frankly funded by the private sector. So I think on the open source side, where government is funding the research, it is rapid dissemination. Where it's truly contract research, the company is hiring our investigators to enroll subjects and then gather the information. We are governed by statutes that require us to report information, particularly erroneous or challenging or negative outcomes, but that remains within the proprietary relationship of the company and the investigator.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, sir. We'll now go to 5-minute rounds, starting with Mr. McCauley for 5, please.
Dr. Smith, thanks very much. Very informative. I was very encouraged by your comments earlier about you've never seen so much cooperation between the levels, but also the speed of which everyone is acting. Is this sustainable? One of the things we've seen in this committee is just the slow pace of purchasing, the amount of regulations, hurdles thrown in front of every organization. I'm glad that we're getting past that. Is this kind of a new dawn that we're waking up to see how much time we're wasting? Or is this a short-term thing? As soon as we're past this crisis, we'll go back to perhaps the old ways?
I'm an optimist by nature. I hope I've conveyed that in my comments today. So I'd love to hope the latter is true, but I do fear the former might be true. And here's why. I think when we take outcomes that are sometimes less than desirable, when events occur that have made, for example, a purchasing process less than fair or questionable in terms of ethics, that we've put new processes in place to correct those, and they have now mutated and culminated to sometimes make the process more important than the outcome. And at a time like this, sadly, at a time like this, I think everyone has parked that and said, we know there are some things we need, swabs, ventilators, reagents, personal protective equipment, go and get them. And we will figure out the best process and following. I recognize why the previous model existed, and I recognize that it was often risk mitigated. But I would certainly encourage us, as this completes, to go back and actually ask, does the complexity of our process warrant the outcome that we're trying to achieve, or actually waste a tremendous amount of time and taxpayer dollars for the illusion of fairness, which at times, frankly, is frustrating to the purchaser, to the provider community, and to the end user. I'm not suggesting for a moment we should walk away from.
Yeah, not really fair in the end. No. So there's the opportunity to perhaps months, years from now, to build a new template based on what we're doing now.
Especially if we're thinking about trying to encourage Canadian production of materials that are essential during times like these.
Great, thanks very much. You talked about we need a healthy stockpile for the NESS. Mr. Green talked about the strategic stockpile, and obviously we've seen federally it hasn't served us well. Some of the provinces have done very well. Alberta has done exemplary on this. Should it all be shifted to the provinces, you think, or what should be the federal role? And a follow-up question on that is getting a bit of feedback of, well, we were focusing on the viral issues, not the PPE as such. And all of the pandemic plans I've read, it's more focusing on vaccines and that. Where best should we go forward so we're not running into this again?
Yeah, You know what, first of all, I don't think this was, when one looks back, there was no error of commission. There may have been some errors of omission that people with the best of intentions, I think in retrospect, you'd say, was there good enough communication between those various levels of government and the private sector around stockpiling? I don't think anyone intentionally said, let's make this not work better.
No, I don't think anyone ever does.
No, I agree. But I think if health is to continue to be mostly operated provincially, then I think there has to be a collaboration between the federal government and the provinces. But I suspect that the stockpile is advantaged by being weighted to the provinces. While I recognize the Government of Canada does also have responsibility for Indigenous persons and persons within the military, one would need to ensure that that can be appropriately managed, be it federally or provincially. It is actually, while the responsibility of the Government of Canada, often delivered still by the provinces. So I think it's one of those ones where you could do a dive and people more knowledgeable than I on both procurement and pandemic stockpiling should actually come back. I'd encourage us to look at around the world at who did this best during this outbreak and what might we do differently to mirror that in the future.
Great. And
just only got about 15 seconds, Mr. McCauley.
Oh, okay. I'll just say thanks for your time then.
Thank you.
We'll now go to 5 minutes to Monsieur Drouin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I want to thank Dr. Smith for appearing before committee today. I did have a couple questions with regards to the state of clinical trials in Canada, and perhaps you could speak to UHN's own experience and how that relates to COVID-19. Are you seeing that collaboration that you've spoke about and the way that clinical trials could eventually work in Canada and its potential without compromising obviously patient safety, but do you see innovation within that system that we can get to obviously to a vaccine faster?
Mr. Drouin, with apologies, I'm not hearing any translation, so I'm still awaiting that, but as soon as I get it, I will try to answer your learned question.
Mr. Drouin is on the floor, perhaps. He was speaking English.
Oh, it didn't come through on my mic, I'm afraid.
Okay, I just selected English, so it should be working now. So I was just asking about the clinical trials and the impact of COVID-19 and whether or not you're seeing innovation within the system of, going through phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, and whether you're seeing a more rapid system within the clinical trials without compromising, obviously, patient safety.
I am seeing a more rapid enrollment of clients. I would say we're not yet at the point where there are many clinical trials, phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, but more into the trials of testing. So there are few Canadian studies that I'm aware of currently underway in randomized controlled trials with interventions that would look at vaccine-like status or serum conversion. There is much more testing going on, and I'd like to applaud that we'd even go further than that. So yes, I think it has been easy. For example, in my own institution with our own research ethics board, there's something called the RESPECT study, looking at the uptake of the disease, the pandemic disease, in healthcare workers, and very rapid movement through an REB, very rapid deployment, very rapid enrollment, very rapid engagement of the laboratory system for testing. One of the challenges I do believe at the moment, particularly for randomized controlled trials, is access to supplies. So again, swabs and reagent. There are usually with RCTs significant amounts of laboratory testing and data collection. And there is a yin and yang, a bit of worry at the moment. Do we have enough for our clinical needs so that we don't allow our research need to take it away from Canadians who need the test for clinical purposes? Increasingly, we're trying to look at the overlap where those who need the test for clinical purposes can also be enrolled in research studies with their consent.
And just before I pass it on to my colleague Majid, I just have a question with regards to, and you've mentioned that Canada is a small player relatively to other bigger nations when it does purchasing, but at the same time, if the private sector does find a vaccine and it chooses a market, for instance, they'd be a lot more attracted by default to the US. They're 330 million people versus Canada, who's 36 million people. Is there any regulatory change that you would advise Canada to ensure that we become an attractive market for those potential clinical trials, or the miracle vaccine that everybody's working on?
So unquestionably, for the multinational drug companies, much of this does come down to the quality of science, where Canada punches well above its weight. So Canada truly outstrips our size when it comes to both leadership in and conducting of clinical trials. Where we unfortunately haven't seen that conversion is into the then manufacturing of products and services. And those much more expert than I in the econometrics of drug companies and what makes pharma choose a nation to be in, usually comes down to labor cost, taxation, and the attractiveness which jurisdictions can offer. We know in the United States, for example, state governments make it very, very attractive in certain parts of the country to come and locate, particularly around early startups. And often these are the case in those reagents and actions that are found that wish to be taken to a phase 1 clinical trial. It's often a group of remarkable investigators who discover something. They are then wooed by jurisdictions where perhaps more ambitiously the waiving of, for example, at municipal, provincial, and federal level of taxation for a period of time, looking at labor supports, they have made it very economically attractive. If we think backward in the province of Quebec, many years ago, the province of Quebec made a concerted effort around...
Unfortunately, Doctor, we're over time as well. My apologies for interrupting, but we have to get to our next intervener, which is Mr. Bouteff, for 5 minutes, please.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Smith, for a very informative session today. You mentioned, and I go back to Mr. Barcelou question about the social contract. If I gather correctly from your response, you were talking about a financial issue, funding in specific. Now, the question, if that is a problem, a new social contract is needed between the federal government and the rest of the provinces, the question is, why now we're talking about that? If you thought, I believe that this has been going for a long time. Can you please explain that?
Yes, I would say a number of us have raised that. I can't remember the date, but I'd be happy to share with you an op-ed piece that I published before the pandemic in the Globe and Mail that talked about this very topic. A number of us have been talking about this for some period of time, as we've seen, for example, pre-pandemic occupancy rates in hospitals at over 110%. And the challenge of individuals, frontline providers, giving us feedback about the conditions. Frankly, we've been very, very fortunate in this pandemic that we've been able to take that occupancy down so dramatically. That in and of itself is an infectious disease risk. To see that kind of occupancy greatly diminishes our effectiveness outside of COVID into any other infectious disease as well. So this is not a new topic. It's a topic that's been undertaken for some period of time by a number of us. This, I think, has, however, made it all the more obvious. I believe I heard the Prime Minister in one of his daily updates also recognize that it will be time for us to revisit how these services are delivered. And I would suggest that if that's the case, one has to look at the resources to do so.
How optimistic you are on achieving that? Unfortunately, given that now is the perfect time to talk about it, because it's a shame of if we're not gonna be able to implement something or to solve a problem that is happening right now, and as it's been going for a long time. So how optimistic have you been getting listening ears from the governments or the governments in general?
You know what, I would be very optimistic around people willing to engage in the discussion. I recognize that there is an opportunity cost for all of these initiatives, and the question comes up, is this not what? Or what do we not do in order to do more of another initiative? I think this really has pointed out to us that this is not something that we can any longer believe is Canada is immune from and to. I think the other piece of this we will hear loudly and should hear loudly, the risks for those not only patients and families who are most important to us, but our frontline providers who've been very frightened during this pandemic. And as always, evidence catches up. It doesn't always lead. So I feel badly that there are many people working in the healthcare system today who are saying, I know you're telling me the science doesn't say I need an N95 respirator, but I'd like a belt and suspenders model so that just in case I do, I'm not putting myself at risk in order to care for another Canadian who is in desperate need of my support. In addition to that, I need to know that the infrastructure is there behind me, not only those who provide direct service, but equally importantly, and sometimes more so, the unsung heroes of our housekeepers, our porters, our food service workers. These are all essential to high infection control standards in Canadian hospitals. So I think it has to be there, and I have every confidence that Canadians will demand this discussion, especially as it relates to the frailest of Canadians, our seniors in long-term care. 70% of our current deaths are those individuals who built our nation. We can do better.
How much time should I have?
You've got about 30 seconds.
30 seconds. Well, I want to thank Dr. Smith for, as I said, for very informative session, and hope to see you again. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. My final intervention, I have Mr. McKinnon, but I'm not sure whether Mr. McKinnon and Mr. Johari wants to take this 5-minute round.
I'm ready to take it if Mr. McKinnon wants to share this time with me. Okay, thank you. Well, in the interest of time, thank you, Dr. Smith. Over the last month or so, we've heard about development of a vaccine, then going through the test, and as well as mass manufacturing, distribution, and administration of it. The timeline that's being discussed is anywhere from a year to 18 months. I'd like you to shed some light on the overall timeline, where we are in your point of view in that process, and how long do you think the clinical trial, the phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3 is going to take? Thank you.
Yeah, I wish I had a crystal ball on this one, truly. It's a very difficult question, although I'm somewhat encouraged. As you know, recently there's been a clinical trial out of Oxford University, and by all I can understand from the popular press, they have produced over 1 million trial drug samples. So that encourages me to the degree that someone who's producing that large of a sample population probably, I hope, has some indication of the effectiveness in preclinical trials of the intervention. I recognize that the 12 to 18 months is the estimate, but I have to say, on my, again, trying to be the eternal optimist side, literally the world scientific community has paused and is focused on COVID-19. I've never seen anything like this in my life, and rightly so. It should be focused on it when we look at the devastation it's wreaked not only to individuals and families, but to our economies. And we know health is directly related to wealth. So I believe that we will see protracted opportunities. I also think there may be some opportunities to even consider whether or not some of those traditional phase 1, phase 2, phase 3 need to go sequentially, or that we might, with some early data, think about concurrent runs after phase 1 to ensure that we're not harming individuals, of course. That being the case, I think the latter part of this discussion has to be around the, as Mr. Green mentioned, the ownership and intellectual property of a vaccine. I'll leave it again to ethicists and business consultants who are more scholarly than I on the ethics of that being true, or opening up that production to international productivity in order to address a pandemic of proportion we've never seen. I think that would be the desired outcome. In preparation for that, I think all countries should be thinking about, are we able to quickly stand up a production facility that would serve our nation? As I heard in the previous speakers, there is a proclivity for each nation to wish to produce first for itself. And I hope Canada is thinking about how we would, with a successful vaccine result, produce it, whether invented elsewhere or not, to ensure that Canadians can be among the first to receive it.
Thank you. I think that brings us to 1:00.
Yes, it does, Mr. Johari. Thank you very much for being so prompt with your time. Colleagues, thank you all for a great discussion today. Dr. Smith, I want to thank you particularly for being available to us on such short notice. And colleagues, we will resume our next discussion on Monday at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I hope everyone has a great weekend and stay safe.
Sorry,
yes,
before we break, if Mr. McKinnon and Mr. Drouin, I'm just sending you both something to your P9s. I just need a call back on, sorry to interrupt, but it's somewhat important. I'll send it to you, gentlemen.
Mr. Chair, if I could also just raise a point here for the official record that on both occasions, on both rounds, because of technical difficulties, both the block and myself were cut out of the round. And I just want to put that on the record that these technical difficulties are coming at the expense because of the way that the speaker's rotation is at our ability to intervene a second time.
Yes, I understand that, Mr. Green, and unfortunately, because of the tight timelines that we have to adjourn at 1 o'clock. What I have done for individual interventions when there have been technical difficulties, I've extended extra time to the individual intervener. But the block of time we only had was 2 hours. So hopefully over the course of the next few meetings and the next few weeks, we'll get all our technical difficulties straightened out. But I take your point.
Yeah, it's not the block of time, it's the allocation I'm critiquing.
No, understood. Colleagues, thank you very much. We are adjourned.
Thanks, everybody.
Bonne fin de semaine à tous.
Bonne fin de semaine.